Welcome to today's Family Town Hall. I'm your host, Hollis Meminger with Action Nat. The mission of Action Nat and the Cat has always been to explain the current world events to children in a way they'll understand, encourage conversation with families, and to include experts to provide resources. We usually do it in animation, but we wanted to quickly address the fears and questions of not only our young cast and their parents, but also all of our young viewers and families. The stories of injustice, fears, and advocacy aren't always televised. Today, we will have an honest discussion with some of our African American cast members, their mothers, and their allies. Today, we wanted to introduce key terms and phrases that you may have heard over the recent weeks. We will be talking about real experiences, what to do if you're arrested, the difference between protests and riots, and how to talk to your kids, and much more. I'm going to turn this over to the wonderful Town Hall cast for introductions.
Hello, all my wonderful friends. My name is Crystal Winfield Edwards. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I'm a former social emotional learning specialist for the district where I worked with our most high-risk students in our alternative schools, where I provided multi-tier systems of support. I missed my kids at the ground level, and so I came on back so that way I could continue to do the work that I feel like is critically important, so that I can continue to support children and families to be able to be a bridge between school and home and ensure that our children do not continue to fall in the educational gap.
I'm Janita Shamby. I have my own law practice called Shamby Law Office. I practice primarily in criminal defense work as well as civil rights work. And some of that in there also encompasses some family law. I've been practicing for over 8 years now, and I am also on several boards within my community to make sure that there is racial equity in my community. I'm the mother of a 15-year-old son who has a lot of opinions, and I talk to him daily about this as well. But, you know, he's angry about this situation, and so he's out there doing something about it. He's protesting with his peers, and he's talking about it with his peers. And so I'm more proud to be a mother than I am of any of my professional accolades.
Hi. I don't consider myself a professional, except for a professional mom, I guess. But I have a master's degree, and I'm a 20-year retired Navy veteran. And right now, my priority is just raising this young man to grow up to hopefully be one of those youth that can make a change.
I'm Langdon Basarge. I'm a psychiatric nurse and an educator, also a radio talk show host. I currently host This American Quarantine, which is a podcast to help everyone survive during the pandemic. And I loudly and proudly call myself a Black Lives Matter member and a strong white ally. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Timothy King. I drive trucks and I'm a videographer, filmmaker.
I've been in medical sales for 20 years, so nothing like spectacular, but have the opportunity to connect with a lot of different people in a lot of different places. So I take advantage of that. And then other than that, just trying to raise these two and do the best that I can, not having direct experience being a Black person, but trying to do the best that I can to, help them to identify with everything of what they are. And that's the good and the bad that comes with it too, unfortunately.
Hey everybody, my name is Mary Munoz. I am the producer of this project, Action Nat and the Cat. I am very proud to know every single person here. I take pride in the fact that I have always been able to bring together a really great group. I hope that in my my tombstone will read that I am the Phil Jackson of producers. So, so yeah, thank you guys all for being here.
Hi, my name is Christian Isaiah. I'm a kid actor. I play in a show called Shameless. And yes. That's my hobbies are playing video games and watching TV and biking.
My name is El Sinio. I play Nat on Action Nat and the Cat, and my favorite animal is a sloth.
Hi, I'm Cece. I'm a kid actress, and I work on a YouTube channel called Goldie Blocks. I've been on Disney Channel, and I play Cecilia on Action Nat and the Cat.
Hi, I'm Micah. I'm a child actor as well, and I've been on Cousins for Life on Nickelodeon and Grey's Anatomy. And I am also a character on Action Nat with the Action Nat Cat. Sorry. I've also been on an episode with Action Nat and the Cat. I play Liam.
Hi everyone, my name is Natalie Munoz-Leasting, and I'm the writer and producer of Action Nat and the Cat.
So, what I want to do, or how I want to start is with Janitha. I'd like you to just kind of go through some of the terms and some of the things that may come up for people in terms of, the words and the things that people may have heard over the weekend and previously, and especially, last night, and a lot of things that are going on, in the street that are kind of causing us to ask these questions. Can you talk about some of those words?
Sure. So just as a small introduction to myself, my name is Janitha Shamby. I am an attorney in Illinois as well as Florida. I practice mainly in Illinois and in the Northern District of Illinois, which means I also practice federally. I want to just go through some of the definitions that we're possibly going to hear today here on this town hall. So one of the first being is injustice. Injustice is when there is a lack of fairness or justice. Someone is not given a fair treatment or the same treatment as others in a similar situation. We're also going to hear about racism. Racism is when someone is treated unfairly based on their race and their ethnicity, their background. This is based on a premise that one race is superior to the other. We're going to hear about protest, which is a process of speaking up against something that someone holds is wrong. They think that it's wrong. This can be done as a statement, speaking out against something, or it can be done as an action, such as marching, sending out petitions, signing petitions, things of that nature. We're going to hear riots, which are so prevalent in the current world today. And so that is an action performed in furtherance of expressing a common purpose through the use of threat of violence, disorder, or terror to the community or public, and resulting in a disturbance of the peace. Looting is an action of robbing, especially during an event such as a riot, war, natural disaster. In Illinois, which is one of the main jurisdictions where I practice, then it's also known when a person knowingly without authority of law or owner enters into the home or dwelling place of another. That can also be on commercial or mercantile or business or industrial building premises in which normal security of the property is not present by the virtue of the natural disaster or the riot or the war or mob action or any other human activities, and obtains or takes control over property of the owner. So looting, you have to understand, is different from theft. Those in Illinois, they actually treat it as different. I know a lot of states will attach theft to looting, but in Illinois, looting is a separate charge on its own, and it's treated as such. We have trial, which is a process where parties come together in a dispute and they're heard. They're able to give their sides of the story through presenting evidence or testimony. And so that's if you have a legal dispute for any reason and it gets into the court, you have a right to a trial. Not everything goes to trial because things can be settled before, but you do have that right to trial. So we have a motto, which is say their names. This is a motto to speak out the names of the wrongly killed people by the hands of the justice system or even vigilantes. We do this to call attention to those who have lost their names and accrue justice system so they are not just another anonymous name. Third degree, I know we've heard a lot about Officer Chauvin getting third degree murder. It only exists in 3 states, Minnesota, Florida, and one other that escapes me right now. Other than that, there is no such thing as a third degree murder, but it is a criminal charge against the defendant. It's the perpetrating of an act, such as performing an act that is imminently dangerous to others and evincing a depraved mind without regard for life or without the intent to kill. Illinois does not have a third degree murder, so this isn't something that I practice in normally. But when we say imminently, that means that it's gonna happen very soon, like almost immediately or very close to immediately. When we say depraved mind, we mean a morally corrupt or wicked mind. And when we say evincing, that just means that it's revealing the presence of that moral and corrupt mind. You may have heard that the family ordered an independent autopsy for George Floyd. Well, an autopsy is just an examination performed on the deceased body to determine the cause of death. And then asphyxiation is the process where a lack of oxygen is actually sent to the brain. It doesn't necessarily have to be done by outside forces. It can be an internal reason, but it's still similar to suffocation or strangulation, where an outside factors are the cause of the lack of oxygen to enter in the brain.
Thank you. So, you know, now we kind of get into a lot more of the heavy things, and I just, you know, always want to lead with feel free to be open, be honest, be aware, and, you know, make sure that you're aware of the room and aware of yourself when you're talking about these things. And I know that you guys know each other well, and, you know, I hope that this becomes a safe space, that you know that there's people here that are going to support any and everything that you have to say and any and every question that you might have. So feel free to you know, peel back some of those layers of what's been uncomfortable. So, you know, I want to ask the Abbey family, what makes you proud to be African American?
Something that makes me proud to be African American is like the community that we have. Like, to be Black is to be a part of a community, and there's so many different types of African American people. There's different skin tones, there's people who originated from different places and who live in different places, but we have a sameness by being African American and have a community, like, by having this sameness, which I think is really cool.
I enjoy the culture because I love all the food and really how everyone comes together as a whole.
Excellent. And if you could have a conversation with an African American leader, and this is for Cecilia, if you could have a conversation with anybody African American from any point in history, who would that be?
Well, I feel like there's a lot of people that I would want to have a conversation with, but I think mostly because it's impacted my life. I haven't really been alive that long, but I think because they've so heavily impacted my life and how I see myself as an African American woman, I'd probably have a conversation with Barack Obama.
What would you ask him? What would be the first question you ask Barack Obama?
Um, I don't know. I think that I would ask him um, how growing up he like came to terms with his identity as not just an African American man, but also as a mixed race and a biracial man growing up in this society where you're almost too black for some people and too white for other people.
That's a great answer. Good job, Mom. And this question is for Christian. What kind of things are your friends kind of discussing right now? Immediately after you've heard all the stuff that's going on around the country, what are your friends saying?
They're sort of just saying like what happened to George Floyd and like some of the stuff that happened to him and the riots and all that. And it's sort of not really uncomfortable, but at the same time, it's not right for them to say that because they weren't really like in that position to talk about why he did this, why he did that. And I just feel like if they didn't know, they shouldn't really be talking about it as much because you don't know what he did. You don't know what has been done to him for you just to say, like, just talk about him.
And then how did you respond to that? Did you respond to it when they started talking about it?
Yeah, I just wanted to like to tell them like this is not just a normal thing. This is something very serious that's happening in the world, in the Black community. And this is something that like you just shouldn't talk about. This is something like you should have a full conversation and not just like blow it away. This is something important to the world at this moment.
So if you was this your first time experiencing something this heavy?
Not really. There's been so many Black men that have been killed and died of like loss of breath and stuff, and it's just
I was saying your cousin.
Yeah, and my cousin getting murdered. Yeah, it's just a lot that's happening to Black men, and it's like really hard to deal with as a kid.
Yeah. Micah, what kind of things kind of scare you? If you're scared of anything besides bats, like me, what kind of things do you think about? You know, when you think of your future, what's the most terrifying thing you can think of since all of this stuff has happened?
I would say it's the fact that even right now, whenever I see a cop, I just like all this fear comes inside of me, and I just a bone chilling feeling. And the fact that I feel that at 12 years old is kind of scaring me for when I'm older, and then people think that it's a more of a problem or more of an issue, and be racial profiled. And it's just so scary because there are innocent people that are being taken, and there are innocent people that have died just because of the way they look, and it scares me. And I just hope that we continue to try and push to change that, so that I can go out when I'm older and not have a feeling like, oh, there's a cop. I'm gonna, like, my heart starts racing.
And that's kind of tough to be 12 and have your heart racing already, you know.
Yeah.
I'm 40. I won't tell you exactly how old I am, but I'm in my 40s. And I can tell you that, a lot of what you're experiencing, I experienced even earlier than you. And that's a very tough thing for, a young man or a young woman to deal with, because you don't have the language for it. You don't have the tools to kind of, there's no blueprint, there's no tools. Like nobody knows really how to deal with this until you're dealing with it, and then you kind of unpack it. So I hopefully we will get through some of this stuff today, and you'll have a clearer vision on how you can affect that change, because you guys are, the future, and it's very important that you kind of understand your role in making those changes happen. This one is, let's see, I'm gonna ask this question to Elle, actually. Elle, is there a time in your life where you felt like you were having a hard time fitting in?
Yes. So there was this one time, a group of girls in my class, they made a club, and I asked them if I could join, and then they told me I couldn't because I wasn't the same ethnicity as them. So I kind of felt like out of place during that time.
And how did you deal with it?
Well, I did tell my parents, like, don't worry about it. They're just being mean. You shouldn't have to worry about those things.
And did you have any support from any of your friends?
Um, yeah, I have told them. They're like, oh, don't listen to them. They're just being rude and inconsiderate. So I did have a lot of friends that were helping me along the way.
And then this question is for Natalie. I'm switching it up a little bit just because the energy is going in the direction. Can you share an experience where you think you were treated differently because of the way that you look?
I don't really have many of those experiences because at school, our school is very diverse. So, and we're like taught not to act that way. But I do remember this one time I was at the park and I was like about 6 maybe, and a group of girls came over to me and said, "Ew, she's Asian." And then they kept making fun of it and laughing about me.
And how'd you deal with that?
I didn't really mind because I know that I just figured that they might feel bad about themselves and they have to make fun of other people to feel good about themselves.
Yeah, well, the strange thing about it is what they're saying is true. Okay, so you're Asian. That's it. That's not enough to change any, like, it's not enough to affect, it shouldn't affect you because you are Asian. And there's nothing wrong with that. But you a lot of times as a youth, even as an adult, I mean, I've been called all kinds of things. And when someone says you're black, it's like, yeah, I mean, I'm probably as black as I'm gonna be, and these things don't really change. So the insult isn't really an insult. It's really an insecurity on their part. So you're handling it really well. And again, I wish I had a lot of those tools when I was growing up, because I grew up in a lot of places that did not have any diversity at all, and I was the diversity. So it's very tough to kind of learn that firsthand without having parents, to guide you through that process. And this last question, it may or may not be the last question for the kids, but Elle, is there anything that you've been scared of growing up?
Um, well, you know, I hope that my future won't have to do with racism and discrimination as we are now, because there's a lot of crazy things happening with, like George Floyd especially. It's really scary right now, and I hope our generation doesn't have to deal with that stuff as we are right now.
So how do you think your generation, like if someone were to ask you, what's the answer to this? How could you change it? What would you say?
I'd say maybe that I'm not
There's no wrong answer either, because you guys are the future, and obviously the answers that we have are completely wrong as
maybe,
adults.
maybe I'd tell them to speak up for themselves, but not through like violence. Like if there's one race that's being like hurt, they have to speak up for them. And same for myself. If I'm being like bullied or for my race, I should speak up for myself. You know, just don't.
You think of like maybe like don't allow people that power to kind of take that from you, and you kind of use that to protect yourself and stand up for yourself, which will kind of deter that, or hopefully deter someone from continuing to, you know, to be racist or biased in any way. Even, you know, to take it a step further, also you're a young woman and you're a woman of color, so you have a couple of things that are at play there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to ask this last question to the Abbey family. Being that you know you're in a family with, you know, a male and a female, young male and a female, when you guys are together, do you find that at times people try to figure out what you are?
Um, when we're all together as a family, we definitely get like a lot of looks. And when I was younger, especially, I had a lot of people ask me if I was adopted. But I think that when me and Micah maybe go places, it is sometimes harder for them to pinpoint exactly what we're a mix of or exactly what race we are. But I don't really think we let it affect us in that way.
Yeah, it was so interesting. It's so interesting because when I'm around like certain people or new people, people are like, so they always ask me questions like, so what are you? Your mom's white, but like, what's your dad or whatever? And it's kind of interesting for us in this situation of being mixed because whenever I'm in like certain groups, it's like I'm not black enough, but then when I'm in white groups, I'm not white enough. So it's hard to fit in.
So how do you deal with that?
I think I just don't let it get to me because I feel like I've dealt with that my whole life, kind of, in the sense that I don't care what people think. I care what I think and what my family and my close friends, because I know I can trust people. And the people that are new and that ask me those questions, I don't really care about that because I just mentally block that out. Just like, I don't know. I just feel like I'm proud of who I am and what ethnicity I am, and I don't want other people judging me for that and that they are going to affect me for that.
I think mine's kind of the same. Is like I know like who I am and I'm comfortable in my identity now. So I think I'm better now than when I was younger.
Like last year?
No.
It does take like a full learning moment, because I remember when I was younger where it did get to me, but I think after I've gone into acting, I feel like, especially in the industry, I feel like it's made me more confident, and I don't know, I feel more confident for who I am.
That's great. You guys are miles away from where I was when I was your age. So again, my hat is off to your parents and anybody else that's influenced you, your teachers, your dog. I'm sure if anybody has one, is very important. I know people love their animals. So, you know, this question isn't on here. And what I want to kind of ask each of you, and you can answer separately or just think about it. Do you believe that it's possible to actually end racism forever?
I personally, I don't think there's not going to be anybody in the world that's going to be not racist. there will always be haters no matter where you go. There will always be racists no matter where you go. It's just to lower down the amount of people that are, and that the 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 police officers that are being protected for being for racial profiling and in in some cases being racist, that they are fired or charged, to just lower the amount of racism in the USA and even all over the world.
I would say it stems like directly from what you're taught. So I think in this next generation, it's really important. Maybe not if you stem from like a racist family, it's hard to escape those ideas. But I think that social media and friends and your community can really shape a person's views on a certain ethnic group. And so I think that gradually over time, by just each generation becoming more open to ideas of other cultures and other religions and other ethnicities, that we can probably eventually get rid of racism.
Yes. Like what Micah and Cece said, I feel like racism is not, like, you're not born with racism. You have to be taught from somewhere. So if that percentage can be lowered down, like, by a lot, I feel like our new generation might be a little better. But it's still going to be there no matter what. It just needs to be lower.
Anybody else?
Parents or kids?
The kids first,
Okay.
and then we'll get into the parents.
I have something to say.
I think that there's always, no matter what, there's always going to be someone that's going to be like bad or racist. Like that's probably might not end, sadly, but maybe it'll at least lower down, but we don't know for sure.
Yeah, one person left.
Okay. Yeah, I hope that parents now are teaching their children to like not be that way and like not discriminate against others. And hopefully the future will change and generations will get better and better about what's going on.
And
hopefully,
what? Yeah, I hope it's a hope in the right direction. So, how about the grown-ups? How about Janitha Shambi? What do you think?
I think that we have a very long way before getting there. As some of the kids stated, it is a learned behavior. And unfortunately, unless you're able to break the chains, then you'll continue the patterns that your family has instilled in you. It's almost like the negative portion of bring up a child in the way he should go, because some people themselves, some adults themselves, they are not educated enough to understand the difference in what they're doing and how wrong that behavior is. So until we can like really educate others on the ramifications of their racist ideologies, we're going to have a long way. I hope that we get to a time where there's no racism and everyone comes together as one, but it's going to take a lot of work on each individual part before we can get there.
And Anita, what do you think?
Like the kids were saying, it is something that is taught in the homes, and we've learned that through the years. And I'm 47 from Alabama, so I've seen and heard of a lot of it in my lifetime. But I think an important thing that can start to make a change is accountability. if we hold these people that are racist accountable, then that's going to help and shed some light. And I think that one thing that we fail, and I know that I feel like I'm guilty of it now, is we wait as parents to teach our kids some things because of the fear that we don't want them to know about certain things. And I think it's sad to say, but in this day and age, 2020, we're still dealing with it. We have to teach them at a younger age. Our kids, just like the Abbeys, my son is 12. And who in a million years would have thought at 12 years old, I would be talking to my child about racism? Like, nobody would believe that. But so my thing is, if we hold people accountable, teach it at a younger age, and it's not to teach it, to drill it into them, but if you teach someone the difference, then they will know, okay, my family may have grew up like this, but that doesn't mean I have to be like this, because we all are given choices. And at some time in your life, you're going to get to a point where you got to make a choice for yourself. When you're a child, yes, you're raised under your parents, but there's going to be a point that you're going to be an adult and you have your own family. So if we're taught these things in school and at home, definitely when we're young, then I think that will help to decrease the racism. And I pray to God that one day there will be a time where there is no racism. Mm-hmm. And I feel that some of these small things can make a change to go towards that, to make it where there will be less and less racism as the time goes on. And I pray that we still be alive to see some of it change.
Yeah. I'm gonna pick on the Abby's mom for a second. And have you had that conversation with them where you had to explain what this process is, racism, bigotry, injustice? Have you had that conversation with the young Abbeys?
It has progressed and changed over the years. Unfortunately, Micah was 3 years old when we first experienced it. There was a little girl at preschool that said he couldn't sit next to her because he was Black. And at that stage, for me, and a little bit of background. So one of the challenges too is that Dad is actually not African American. Dad is African. So Dad grew up in different parts of the world. So he's not experienced the African American racism. His experience is very different. I've been around a lot of African Americans my entire life, so I see it from a third party perspective. So I feel like I can teach them a little bit more regarding kind of what I see here in this country, and Dad teaches kind of a different perspective. But, you know, when that happened at 3 years old, I had to have a conversation that was appropriate for a 3-year-old. So, you know, what I told my kids is, you have to just remember that, you know, we're all human beings. And some people are, you know, dark brown, and some people are medium brown, and some people are light brown, and some people are really light brown like Mom. And that was the conversation that I had. And then it got to be a little bit different, you know, as they progressed. And I'm like, Cecilia read a book when she was in the 4th grade. She read To Kill a Mockingbird. And so that was the first time the N-word came up. Mm-hmm. And so we had a conversation around that, and around kind of the subject in the book, and, you know, how it used to be used and how it's used now. And, you know, it hasn't changed how it's used. It's still a derogatory term. And now that they're this old, then I still kind of filter some of what they see, because I don't want them to be in fear. We watched Black Klansman last year, and Micah was a little shook, to the point where when Macias came out, he did not want to watch it. Cecilia was at a different level. So I feel like I want to give them enough information so that they are aware and cautious, but I want to make sure that they're not afraid to speak up when they're in fear. I don't want to put them in fear, but I do want them to be cautious. So I'm trying to balance them being knowledgeable with appropriate knowledge at their age, not hiding it, but sharing enough as well.
Excellent. And I'm gonna ask Janitha Shambi this question. You know, what do you think is a base level thing that we can do to improve the relationship between law enforcement and the citizens in this country?
So one of the things that can be that we can do is we can have police accountability. One of the moms talked about accountability earlier. We can have that. I'm actually joining a board in the community where I live, where there will be a civilian oversight of police activity. So that's one way. Another way is to get involved, right? We can get involved. We can, when there are certain community events where officers are there, or we can try to create a lot of these community events to bring officers and civilians together, to show, to let them know from our perspective how we view them in their activity. And they can even talk to us to tell us how they view it, and we can have a conversation. And that's unfortunately that's not what's happening now. We are reacting, and we need to be proactive instead of just reacting to a situation. People need to get involved in their community as well. Go to their town hall meetings, go to the city hall meetings, go to their council meetings, and speak up about anything that they've perceived as being unjust to them, so that those actions can be, they can be accounted for. Those actions can be addressed as well, so that we won't continue to have the same action that's happening. We won't continue to have the same behavior. We need to also make sure that we're voting. We need to do our research on who we're voting in. And unfortunately, a lot of people, they do lazy voting. And they're only going like, okay, well, I'm this party, so I'm gonna vote in this party, or I'm the next party, or my vote doesn't count, so why should I go and waste my time in the first place? And so you have to understand, not voting on a national level, just talking about the presidential election, it's our local elections that are more important. And those are the ones that we need to get out there. We need to find out who is trying to represent us, and make sure that we are voting in a person that also believes in equity. These are just some of the things that can be done, and it's a starting point in order for us to narrow this gap of this racial divide.
I'm going to jump in really quickly and just add a little bit to what you're saying too. The difference, I think the difference in our generation and the younger generation is we knew who the police officers were. You know, our neighborhood police officers knew us, we knew them. There was an ongoing relationship that if I did something wrong and, you know, I saw police officers, 9 times out of 10, somebody that I knew, and they would talk to you, they would, you know, tell you that you shouldn't be doing what you're doing. And, you know, they knew you by first name, you know, they knew your parents, some of them grew up with your parents. And now I think the difference is we've gotten so far away from each other that nobody knows one another. And even the cops don't know their neighborhoods anymore, you know, which creates, you know, that sort of divide between everybody. And I think, you know, I don't know exactly what the answer is, but I think part of it is making sure that the police officers know their community, and they know, you know, we had cops that used to go to games, so they knew, you know, ball players, they knew people's parents, they knew the real estate people, they knew the people that lived in an apartment. But it was just a different, not to say that we did have police brutality, because we definitely did, but at least there was some dialogue. We could actually talk to somebody. Now you can't talk to anybody. And if you do, wanting to kind of approach them also puts you in a position where both of you are immediately afraid of what you don't understand and what you don't know. So it puts you both in a really strange spot, because we're already defensive. We're both defending ourselves and nothing's happened yet, which heightens that, you know, kind of emotion. And even when we answer people, we answer from that position of being defensive rather than, you know, having an open dialogue with them. So I think that, you know, that to piggyback off of what you said, is just really, holding people accountable, even down to a base level of delivering tickets. I mean, in New York City, they'll write you a ticket for anything. I mean, I was in my car and got a ticket, and I was parked legally, but the meter had expired. And I could have escalated that if I didn't have the language for it. So a lot of times it's also making sure that you have the language to be able to stand up, and not in a sense that you are being so you're excited and you're just as excited as they are. It's, being able to have the language and understanding of what your rights are and what you're able to say and what you're supposed to say. And then now, because you have phones, we didn't have phones, so there were no recordings of anything. Things just happened, and you heard about them much, much later. So, in this case, I'm not sure what would have happened if we never saw this, if we never saw this occurrence, because at the same time, nobody's really talking about Breonna Taylor, and she passed as well, and that's very important, but it's not as prevalent because we didn't see it, but it still happened. Um, so, my next question is kind of geared towards Anita. Um, how did you position yourself, or gather yourself as a mother to sit down and have a conversation with your son on what you just saw and what's going on around the world?
Well, to go back for a second, like Dawn was talking, Micah mom, at a young age, we had just moved to California from Virginia, and Christian was in, I don't even think it was first grade. It was first grade. He had just gotten first grade, and he had a situation where a little Armenian girl, because he was the only African-American child in his class, and he had a little girl that told him that her dad told her that all Black people are bad. And that really hurt me. I cried because I was like, my child is too young for me to be explaining this to him. And we had to have a talk then, just letting him know that people see people differently, that you're not a bad person, just that somehow she is being raised. So now to fast forward, since he's been a child, because I'm a single parent, I've had to just teach him that people are going to treat you different because of the color of your skin. Like, I had to eventually grow up learning that, because when I lived in Alabama, Alabama is still pretty segregated in some places. People don't believe it, but it is. And when I went to college and joined the military, then I learned the difference and met a lot of different people. So me being a military mom also opened him up to see different people and be engaged and around different people. But I still had to let him know that everybody is not going to like you. There are people that gonna love you because of who you are, or that they like your character on TV, but they may personally not like you. The same thing as far as they're gonna look at you and say, oh, I don't like him because, oh, it doesn't even have to do with his color, just because of what he does. There's so many different types of racism. And it's just, at this point, I'm sitting him down to tell him, hey, explain it to him what happened. And it's hard. And that, I think I cried first to the fact that I had to show him or tell him about the video. And then I never watched it myself completely because I'm so heartbroken that I've seen different clips. I've seen pictures. So he's seen the pictures. But to sit down and watch 8 minutes and 46 seconds of someone being murdered, I just can't do it. And I just want to explain, and I've talked to him and let him know that this is the world that we live in. This is our reality. People think that, oh, he's 12, or some of these kids are younger, it's too young. It's not. This is their reality. If you are an African American child or any child of color, there's no such thing as being too young, because this is your reality. And just the other day, I've always been a protective parent. And so just a few days ago, him and a friend went to ride a bike down the street. And that was the hardest thing for me. So a friend of mine was here with me, and they kept my mind off of it the whole time. That was before this even happened. And so a day ago or 2 days ago, I was on a Zoom call with a meeting, and I was like, oh, I can't get something to eat. And I almost told him, go ride your bike to the store, and I had to catch myself because I'm like, I can't trust that my child is going to be okay, and we don't even live a mile away from the store. He doesn't even have to go in major traffic or anything, and it's sad. So we have to tell them, we have to explain it to them, we have to be brutal. It's sad, but I'd rather be brutal and cry with my child now than to be crying over my child because someone has killed him, because he didn't expect this cop that he's taught is supposed to serve and protect him is the one that could possibly kill him someday. He don't understand that there's a kid that may go to school with him that doesn't like him because of who he is, what he looks like, that could possibly turn on him at a split second and kill him someday. These are things that are happening in schools to young kids at their age. They have to know. It is so heartbreaking to be able to have to sit here and tell a 12-year-old child that. But if we don't tell them, they're going to learn it the wrong way. And I just refuse to be that parent. I don't want to be crying over my child because someone has hurt him because he was too naive to know that there are people that are going to hate him because of the color of his skin.
Yeah.
I'm sorry if I get long-winded. I'm just really emotional about this because I just never thought I would see this in 2020.
Yeah, it's important, and I hope that, you know, this is a space where you feel like it's okay, and it's definitely. I mean, I'd rather, you know, let you go and do what you need to do, because that's important, you know,
Thank you.
especially in the healing process, and just being able to express that, because we don't have space to do that.
Yes.
Langdon, I'm going to kind of probe you for this next question. What do you think it is the most important thing for people who want to be allies in this consistent fight for equality?
It's a great question. I think there's two levels. There's maybe allies who are more aware, and then other potential allies. So I think what I would always encourage any white person, any person of non-color, or even just in helping to facilitate dialogue between different ethnicities, you know, Asian, Indian, step one, I think, is listen. Many people, particularly white people, are all too quick to jump in and I have the answer, versus how about you take a second, take a breath, listen, because there's no way that I as a white person can know. I have my years of Black friends and dating. I have Black and brown and Asian members in my biological family. But even with all of that love and contact, I still cannot ever know what it is like to be Black or brown or Asian. So I think what happens for some people, white people, they do feel that sadness and that anger at what they see, and then they may want to just jump in too quickly. So when I'm working with groups to do racial reconciliation or social justice type work, and to facilitate these really challenging conversations, which is so wonderful that you guys are all doing, that Action Nat put this together, and that we're all in this safe room doing this. It's beautiful. We need more of it. But I usually encourage them first, to be honest, shut your mouth and listen. but then I usually encourage people, because these issues can be so difficult. And so I always encourage using some tools, you know, from my field, from psychiatry. So first of all, being mindful, because no matter what race you are, no matter what end of the conversation you are, some difficult emotions are going to get brought up. Just when I was listening to Christian and Elle talk about their fear, I mean, I was having a lot of emotions because I'm a nurse, and so I want to take care of those kids, and I've also met them now. And then, of course, listening to Dawn and Anita, to the moms. But I have to be able to be aware of and maintain my emotional control so I can then be of assistance. So I usually encourage anyone who wants to be an ally, but on both sides of the dialogue, to make sure that they can keep their own emotions under control, and to realize why it is that they're there, that it's to help, that we are together. So right now, I think we're seeing the worst in American history as far as this sense of tribalism. It's been exacerbated in the last 4 years, really 12 years. but on a hopeful note, and one thing that I do want to say, especially to the younger ones in the room, is while we are having this dialogue and your families are having these important dialogues, and they're going to continue, because the risks are real, and the individuals that are out there that could be ignorant, hateful, and engage in discrimination or violence, they are very painfully real. But more and more, I see from an individual and a community level, and finally at a better organizational or systemic level, like within schools and government, I see the positive change. And so I kind of just always want to tell young folks too that you have allies in surprising places, and you are never alone. Yeah, I could go on for hours, like probably all of you. So that's where I would encourage white people to start to be an ally, is to listen and to recognize this pain and be able to sit and hold Black pain and understand Black pain or Black anger. And then to say, I want to help. This has to stop.
Excellent. And Tim, do you think that when people first approach others, how should they approach people of color and Black people specifically right now? How should they go about approaching people that they want to help or they want to assist?
I would say with a handshake, but with the coronavirus out there, can't do that. But I would say, with a conversation, start with love, or even I'll say, let me give you an example. I was riding around my community, and I seen a bunch of police officers pull up and get out of the van. Okay. I seen the police pull up and they got out of the van, and they was like posted on the corner of 111th and Mission. So I did a round. They was getting out. The second round, they was standing up. They was talking up in bunches. And across the street from them, I don't know what organization it was, not-for-profit church or whatever, or they were passing out food. The people were. They were passing out food. And then on another corner, it was people passing out mags. My suggestion would be, let's say if they were set up in a way where they had the people on security, and then they had officers at some type of booth passing out food, talking to the community, passing out water, stuff like that. I think giving people things, that's a good way to say that, hey, it's just like bringing your teacher an apple, or here's a gift. That opens people's ears up. Start a conversation, because when you feed someone that's hungry, that kind of takes away a lot of the anger. Right there. That's why I like family, eat together, stay together, type of thing. So I would say, with love, approach with love in some type of way.
Excellent. And do you guys have the Tom Franco video kind of ready?
Hi, this is Tom Franco from Action Nat and the Cat. I wanted to be part of this town hall meeting with this short video. I stand in support of our Black communities during this ongoing challenging time for safety and fair treatment for everybody. I want to remind you to find a special way to stay calm. Take some time to love yourself and love the people around you. Stay strong, be smart, and stay in love. Thanks for watching, and I encourage you to share this video with other families you might know. This is Tom Franco, signing off. Peace.
I wanted to hold this last question before I get into some of the technical things with Crystal and Janitha. But this question is for Thea, because you know, you guys are some of you, I mean, from what I know, you're on shows and you're working in film and stuff already. Um, but Thea, can you talk about what it's like to be a Black woman in film and television at a certain level, and where you've been, where you're headed, but also what kind of things did you see and hear and have to endure in order to get where you are, and what would you suggest for them going forward? Because this business, again, I've been in it for 22 years, and as much as people are talking about it changing, I haven't seen it. And I can tell you, every job that I've been on, I've probably been the only person that wasn't doing security and the food and catering and parking. And that's up through last year. So can you talk about your experience and what that's like and what their future could be?
You mean in terms of race?
Yes, with regard to race.
It's interesting. I'm also a part of the local board of the SAG local board here in Chicago. So, and I'm probably one of three on the local board here in Chicago, and it's about maybe 30 of us. So that's interesting to be a part of that and be a minority in that room. But as an actress here in Chicago, and to watch a lot of people get cast outside of Chicago as recurring roles, you know, from New York and California, it's pretty tough to watch that happen. But it's interesting, you know, and but you know, you keep pushing and you do what you need to do in that regard. So.
But how would you suggest to somebody like, you know, who is aspiring, they don't see themselves? I mean, we very rarely see people of color in a lot of spaces, besides a few shows that are out there, and those actors and actresses continue to get recycled and recycled and, you know, reworked until they've gone to another place. But how would you, like, what did you have any specific issues with regard to race while you were coming up in the business?
Well, I think my journey has been unique in itself because I started out rather late. I worked in corporate America for about 20 plus years, and just found myself unhappy, and woke up one morning and said, you know, I'm gonna just take some time off, and found myself in an audition room. So it just it worked out differently for me. So I would just say to anybody young in this business and just trying to find themselves and their footing, to not give up and just know that you're enough, and don't allow any of the naysayers or race or any of that to even come into play for you, because you have to find out what your why is and stick to the why and keep going. I mean, for me, it was more therapeutic than anything to do it. And that is still why I do it, because I love it. And I don't do it to be famous or anything like that. It's just, it brings joy to me to do it, and I love it. And that's why I do it. And I just found myself amongst people that I never would have thought that I would be working alongside of. And so I think that's it. You know, you have to just keep remembering and keep saying to yourself that you are enough. And that's it. You're enough, and love what you do, and keep studying, and don't give up. That's it.
That's great. I'm going to use that in my, you know, I've told myself I might give myself about 5 more years, and then I'm gonna find something else to do. So if any of you guys have a job that I can work on, I can carry cases, I can clean stuff. I'm good at cleaning. Spent about a year using Windex. Um,
Do you mind if
so,
I interject on that question really
yeah,
quick? I know I'm
of
not
course.
African American, but speaking on behalf of the minorities in film, um, I just was part of a really amazing short film called The Audition that talked about a lot of the same stuff with the Latino community and everything too. I came from the acting world and left one pilot season when I was only getting incredibly stereotyped auditions. I was very fortunate that I was getting in the room, but it was still stuff that was, know how to do martial arts and be, hot Asian girl and stuff like that. The same year, I got offered a position to work as an assistant for a producer at 20th Century Fox. And to me, I made that jump because I thought it was more important to learn how to produce and to create a platform that elevates people of color and can help change the narrative for people and to become more vocal rather than just playing along all of the parts. That's part of something that's very important for us here for Action Nat as well. And it's something that we in the Chicago community really stress is, producing your own content and aligning yourself with individuals that are a force to create more stuff. And when you do that, eventually the industry, hops on board. And that's because there's such a noise. That's why we have so many more shows with minority representation, on Netflix and stuff like that. And it only takes one show. I mean, even Crazy Rich Asians, until then there's suddenly a bunch more Asian people on TV. You know what I mean? And it's a very big difference now. Since the 80s, like my only person that I really looked up to was Felicia Rashad on The Cosby Show. She was the boss, and now there's so many amazing women to really look up to. So yeah.
Hollis, can I jump on board to Mary as well?
Sure.
Just two quick points on that are really important that I was thinking to share, particularly with the younger folks. From a casting side of view, what's happening in Hollywood is very interesting, and I think it's a time for people of color to own their power. Within writers' rooms, within showrunners' rooms, casting directors, the new term, it's been around for maybe 5 years, but it's everywhere now, is multiculti. So they really want to cast people that are racially diverse or even racially ambiguous. And there's two sides to that coin. One side could be potentially negative, but the positive side to that coin is that whether they feel it in their hearts or not, they recognize that society has called for this, society is demanding this, and they recognize that their money will be affected by whether or not they adequately represent our beautiful diversity in society on television and film. So I would say, in a positive thing to all the kids, there's no better time to be a person of color in the media than now. And I think too, because of the positive changes I pray are coming from the unrest we're seeing now, there will be even more opportunities. And that links to a point that Anita brought up and Dawn brought up about you are enough, know yourself, love yourself. And that's what then ties into Mary's point about who you're with, who you surround yourself with. The best advice is to knock on every door, say yes to every, positive offer. But like Mary said, make your own content, be a creator as well. And on that note, people right now that you're friends with, that maybe you did a show with or a commercial or even a class, they will become your family of choice in the future. Not all of them, of course, but many of them. And I'm constantly surprised. I'm 51, and I'm constantly surprised when I run into someone from my days in New York 20 plus years ago, or someone from college. So these positive relationships will stay with you. And I think as much as they talk about gatekeepers for coaching kids and getting into Hollywood and stuff, it's really about relationships. So know yourself, be yourself, love yourself, and make those positive relationships, and then nurture them, because they're like a garden. So they need some water every now and then they'll flower. So that's my Hollywood advice for you guys.
Now we're going to try to get into a little bit more of like the action items and some of the things that we can actually do. And I'm going to, start to talk to Crystal Winfield. Oh, you're on mute.
Winfield Edwards.
I am going to get this right before we get off this call. Crystal Winfield Edwards. Can you tell everybody what they can do if you're separated in a crowd?
I'll be honest with you. Personally, I always make sure that I have a buddy if I'm going into a crowd, and especially these types of crowds. And if you're taking a child with you, I would ensure that you have something that connects you physically to your child. I would not go into a large group without something that would connect me physically to my kid. And then also, just even before you get there, like I don't hold my child's hand, I hold their wrist, because if something happens, I have a better grip on their wrist. That's whether we're going to the grocery store or crossing the street. But if you do find yourself separated, make sure that you have already had a conversation about safety points and safety checks and places that are considered to be safe in the area that you're going to. So identify that. So even as you're walking in that crowd, you should still be having those conversations about what looks like it could be safe. So if you did get separated, you would be able to then hopefully find like a police officer, or either help your children to identify people that I wouldn't just go if it was just you and your kid. Like you definitely should be going with more than like at least 5 people, so that way there is a buddy system integrated into what it is that you're doing. But definitely identify those safe spaces. But if my kid got lost in the crowd, I want them to scream until death comes so that I can hear them. Because as a mother, I'm going to hear you. I may stop the crowd trying to find my baby. And my oldest one is 26. I'm gonna stop the crowd just to even find her too. Mm-hmm.
You're muted. Hollis, you're muted.
I'm sorry?
No, Hollis is muted.
How about now?
Okay.
I'm gonna definitely make the blooper reel for all kinds of reasons. What would you recommend, or how would you recommend to the parents explaining like how they deal with their fears and some of the things that they're experiencing around this particular topic, but going forward, anything from how they deal with it in school, what they're afraid of in general?
I think that the acknowledgement of the fact that we're afraid too. These are very uncertain times, and the answer is that we don't have all the answers. One of the things that I do think that are crucially important is first awareness and education. And as African Americans, I definitely understand that sometimes we wait too long to have the conversation about race, and that then works against us. Because when you think about race and racism, it's almost like religion. This is something that our, Caucasian counterparts have been taught about from the time that they came out the womb. They've been taught about their superiority. And I love y'all. Y'all my friends, okay? I love y'all. I don't know no strangers. I love y'all. Y'all my friends. But I think it's important that we help our counterparts to lean into discomfort. And whenever we're getting ready to start having a conversation, we should let them know, I say this to you in love. And I say this to you with the hope that we both will be able to continue to grow in our friendship and who we are and grow as people. Then as we continue on, like I love Jane Elliott. If you don't want to believe me and you needed to come from somebody that looks like you, look up a Jane Elliott video. She will get you right real quick. I love her. But then also, like when we are speaking to our kids, make sure that our conversation is developmentally appropriate. Like my daughter was 5 years old when she realized that we were different than other people. And she asked me, why was my friend's hair yellow? And I said, what do you mean? She was just like, her hair is yellow. Our hair isn't yellow. And I was like, oh, well, you know, her hair is just yellow because she's yellow, but I was a young mother. So here it is, I'm 25 and I have a 5-year-old asking me, why is my friend's hair yellow? So in my own immaturity, I didn't know what to say. But then later on, when we were at home, I was like, well, she's white. And she was like, what does that mean? And I was just like, she's white and we're black. For me, I waited too long to help her better understand her identity as a young black girl in America. But with my sons, I had the conversation much earlier. Like I've been drilling into them. You all are African-American men. Things are different for you. They don't understand why. Things are different for you. And this is the way that we have to approach things much differently. You have to work twice as hard, sometimes 3 times as hard. To have like young people on this call that have to deal with, they have an amazing self-esteem already. They have a true amazing mental capacity to be able to deal with rejection. They have to be able to deal with success. They have to be able to weed out who's there for him and them and who's not. And these are all the things that come along with having a seat at the table. So once they get the seat at the table, and I know that Langdon had talked about it, but I also think it's important that they keep that best friend from the hood. From the block, you always have to have somebody who can ground you, that keeps you aware of actually what's happening on the ground so that you don't get too removed. Because it's very easy to get wrapped up in who we are as our success and, you know, just different things like that. But we got to have that friend that be like, hey, we not going to play today? Like, what happened? We need a freeze pop today. We need, where the icy cups at? Y'all know what icy cups are, right? Okay. But then even having those conversations, so always keep it developmentally appropriate, like use the developmentally appropriate words. And the great thing about it is that we are living in an age of technology where there is a video about anything it is that we want to talk about. It's a book about anything it is that we want to approach. And because we have these different platforms, we can reach out to multiple different people of multiple different races and have these type of conversations. And Anita can talk to Mary and say, Mary, you know, like, what are you doing so far as this? Like, and how are you approaching that? But the more that our kids see us in diverse opportunities, that is something that also helps. But it's hard in the segregated racist Chicago. So you have challenges that are coming from the bully themselves, and then we have our kid that's being bullied, right? We really have to drill down into what's really happening with the bully. What I have had to do as a parent and as a, you know, social work professional, I go to the bully, I have those conversations ahead of time about what's going on, and then I bring the two of them together and I try to find what their commonalities are. And then I help the two of them build on each other's strengths. And even when my daughter was in high school and she was being bullied, like really seriously, she looked up and I was at the basketball game and she said, why are you sitting next to her? And I said, because she's bullying you. Then I offered the girl a ride home. And I just reversed it. And I said, you know what, is my daughter bothering you? And she was like, no, why you say that? I said, because I want to make sure she always treating you nice. Take my number and let me know if she's not treating you right. And the girl left her alone. But what she found was, and she always came back and said, your mother really helped me because I didn't know why I was bothering you. I didn't know, but what it was that she just needed somebody that saw her. Like sometimes our kids that are the bullies, they feel invisible. And so it's nothing like when you are working with a kid that has a hole in their heart somewhere. And so we as the practitioners in their lives, we have to be able to always recognize who our silent sufferers are. Because that means bullying is just really something, it's a symptom of something else that's much greater that's happening emotionally with the child. And make sure that you talk to them. If it's your kid, have a conversation with them. Ask them what's going on. Find out if they know what that bully's triggers are. Ask them how they want you to help intervene.
This last little bit before we kind of wrap it up is for Janitha Shambi. Can you tell the kids and me, because there's a lot of things, you know, on here that I think I know, but I also am always wanting to be educated more. What is the punishment for looting? Is it across the board? Is it different from state to state?
So criminal acts, they are state mandated. So each state has their own penalty. Unless it's a federal crime, each state has their own penalty for looting or any criminal charge of that matter. Here, again, like I said, I practice mainly in Illinois. So here in Illinois, it's considered a class 4 felony. We have several classes. A, B, and C are all misdemeanors. 4, 3, 2, 1, X, and M, those are all felonies. And so it's the lowest class of felony that you can get. And if it, like I said, it's a standalone charge. So it's not attached to theft or anything like that. And if found guilty of it, you're going to serve a minimum of 100 community service hours. A lot of times it could be independent community service, which means that you can choose the nonprofit organization of where you want to perform your community service hours, and also restitution. Do you all know what restitution means? Okay, so restitution means that you pretty much make someone whole. You pay back what you took from them. And so you either have to give back the property or its monetary value. Again, like I said, that's going to be different from state to state because sometimes some of the states attach theft to it, and theft can also hold some prison time. But here, you know, there's at least that minimum of 100 hours of community service.
If you get pulled over, I mean, you know, this is tricky, right? I mean, if I get pulled over, and I guess I'll make it specific to Chicago because I'm not sure, you know, I'm oblivious to what the different state laws are. I just know what they are here in New York. But if you get pulled over, what should somebody do, you know, first and foremost, the minute that happens?
Don't run, that's for sure. But you don't have to give all your information, right? You can present your license and registration to show that you are in legal control of that vehicle. Other than that, if they ask you any sort of questions that are, I don't know, accusatory, then you just ask them, you know, you have a right to ask them why you're being pulled over. You do have that right. You have to let them, you give them your name, you give them your license, you give them your registration. You can ask, why am I being pulled over? And as long as you're following protocol, that's not to say that the officers won't go beyond the scope of their duties and cause some sort of excessive force to you. But at least you can show that this is what you are doing. And if you want to record that actual interaction, you can do that. I know that Apple has a program on it where you can talk to Siri and ask her to start recording, and she'll start recording live. And there are other programs out there that allows you to do that too. And the reason is because that has accountability, not only for what it is that what part you had in the interaction, but as well as what part the police had in the interaction. Again, the only thing that you can't do is give false ID because that's obstruction. But short of that, you're not required to do anything else.
So my last question, and then I'll wrap. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
Can I just add one more thing? When I got this has been a beautiful godsend for me. I memorized my license number because there have been times that I have left my home without my driver's license and I have gotten pulled over a few times. And the fact that I could give the officer my driver's license number and they can go check and see that I was who I was made the difference between me having to go down to the station and being able to drive off. And so what I have always done is I keep like maybe an old expired ID in my car to identify who I am. I always keep one in my glove compartment and I commit my driver's license number to memory. So that way, should I run out the house or I lose all identification and I get pulled over, I have that information to be able to identify myself. And as the kids get ready to learn how to drive and they're on the streets, they should have, that information so that way they can identify themselves quickly.
The thing that I'll add to that as well is that we all have smartphones, right? And because we have a smartphone, we stop memorizing numbers. Memorize your parents' number. Memorize if you have some responsible adult number. If you are an adult and you have an attorney that you know, memorize their number. Because if you are taken into custody for any reason, you don't, again, like I said, you don't want to fight, you don't want to resist, because that just gives them the right to continue to treat you unfairly and then say that, well, it was your fault. So you don't want to do that. But if they take you into custody, you are permitted a call. Call one of those numbers to let them know. You don't talk. You have a Fifth Amendment right to not self-incriminate. Self-incriminate pretty means tell on yourself. You don't have that right with your parents, but you definitely have that right with the police officers. You don't have to, they'll try to investigate you without calling in your parent, without calling an attorney, because they want to get that information out of you. They'll act like they're your friends. They're not your friends. Remember, this is in your Miranda rights. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. They will take your words and they will twist those words in order to make it seem like you're making some sort of confession of some sort. So you want to make sure that. Also remember your Sixth Amendment right, where it says that you have a right to counsel. So you get in there, they start asking you questions. What's your name? I want a lawyer. Well, I just asked, what's your name? I want a lawyer. And they have to stop talking to you after that moment. Sometimes some officers will, again, go beyond the scope of their duties and they'll try to make it seem like, oh, well, we weren't going to put you behind bars, or, we're going to let you go. We just need you to cooperate with us. It's always, I want a lawyer, because they will take that and they will use it against you. It has happened time and time again, and you can't take back words. Only unless it was under coercion. But you can't take back words, and so it makes an attorney's job that much harder, and your job in court that much harder. I have to tell this to my son. My son is 15 now. He is starting to driver's ed. And so I have to have these conversations with him as well, just to make sure that he knows what he needs to do, because he'll have his license next year. I'm terrified, but he'll have it next year. And I want to make sure that he understands what the laws are, because he is, although he may be very light, he's a young Black man, and he faces that discrimination just like he faced in soccer, where another student called him a nigger. So You have to make sure that you know your rights when it comes to interacting with the police.
Do we have a couple more minutes? Is everybody okay with maybe 2 more questions? So I know we've kept the kids and the parents in their seats the whole time. I hope it was worthwhile, because I know, you know, that everybody's probably hungry. Some people might want to go to sleep. So I wanted to have Cece ask a question to Crystal Winfield Edwards. Am I good now? Are we back? Are we back? We okay?
We was always good.
Okay. All right.
Always good.
Are we? So does she have that, Mary, or she doesn't have that?
Do I have a question?
No. Cece had a really good question that
I have it.
Mom.
Does Cece want to do it, or should I?
Oh yeah, I can read it.
Okay.
Okay. So my question was, what do I do when my people who I hang out with, my friends, they hang out with people who have racist or prejudiced tendencies? And I was wondering how I can approach my friends and talk about how I'm uncomfortable with the things that their friends say without like dictating or like seemingly dictating like who they're friends with and who they choose to be friends with.
That is a very mature question because it's applicable to adults as well. I have a lot of like mixed friends and I have Caucasian friends, and I just approach them in love. And like I call everybody friend. I'm like, hey friend, hey friend. And I just go to them and I say, you know, I need to be able to have a difficult conversation with you that may be uncomfortable, right? I want you to know how much I value you as a friend. And I hope that you value my friendship as well. And then then you ask them, are they at a place right now where they can have what could be an uncomfortable conversation? You don't ever want to have a conversation with someone and they're already in a bad mood. It's not going to go anywhere. But ask them, and then ask them, do they need a private space? Is this something that they would prefer for you to talk to them on the phone? It's better face to face. That way people can see what your intentions are with your face and they can read your body language, right? And then you just say to them, look, friend, I was concerned because when we were hanging out, Joanne made a joke and I felt like it was really insensitive. And I know that she's your friend and I'm not trying to start anything between the two of you all. However, I do want to let you know that should she say something like that again, I'm going to lean into discomfort and I'm going to have a conversation with her about why what she said made me uncomfortable. She does not have to agree that what she said made you uncomfortable, but you do have to lean into your own discomfort and always live your own truth. And that's what you tell them. And I say this to you in love and not offense, but what you said to me made me uncomfortable. And I don't know if you realize that what you said could be considered to be, it was racially insensitive to me. Mm-hmm. And you always keep the conversation centered on how it made you feel using I statements. And then you close that out with say, I care about you because Joanne, you a friend of Tammy's. I care about you because we have a mutual friend. And I like it when we can all hang out together. I hope that you can respect where I came from. Mm-hmm. If you'd like to continue this conversation, we can. Then you can go even deeper. But however, how do you identify?
I just identify as as biracial.
Okay, but so as a biracial woman, this is why what you said was insensitive to me. Me, I'm going full in. As a Black woman from the South Side of Chicago that grew up in poverty, I will tell you why it is that what you said could be offensive. And I'm going hard at the corporate level too. It doesn't matter to me. Like sometimes I could be the only Black person at the table and I have to be able to have the courage to say what I need to say. And
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I think Micah has a question as well. I have to be completely honest. This will also go on the blooper reel before Micah goes. My tech guy is completely fired. While Micah's talking, you might miss me, and I'll be right back.
Okay.
I said, how do I make sure that people don't think that I'm not for Black Lives Matter, for not Black Lives Matter if I'm not at the protest because I'm afraid of rioting in the police?
I'm afraid of rioting and police. I really do not like very large crowds. Another thing, there are many different ways that you can support a protest without actually being there. You could be the person that helps to make signs, and then you could go with your parents to drop those signs off. You could be the person that makes a donation. You could make sure that you join the NAACP as a youth, right? They have so many different things that you could do. You could go to your alderman's office and volunteer there and ask them, what can you do as a young citizen to help promote more racial equity in your community? So being able to support a cause doesn't just mean that you have to be there, standing there raising the fist, right? There are things that you can do even just in your conversation, and you can advocate within your own family to support Black Lives Matter. Because the truth is that what I'm waiting for is for Black, our Native American brothers and sisters, our Latinx brothers and sisters, and our Asian brothers and sisters. It's about time that we all come together and get this job done right. We have to figure out how to come together as a collective. And I've seen like small kids do great movements. So would you just remember that you met me when you doing something great? And I'd be like, hey, you remember me? Like, hey, friend, thank you. So it's a lot of different things that you could do without having to actually be there.
I can add on.
If I can add on to that. Things that you could do. Go.
Yeah. If I can add on to that, like we said, like she was saying that you can maybe even be an organizer. I'll just let you know. I just went to a rally, protest and a rally on Sunday, and it was organized by youth, Black and white, from the local high school, and it was amazing. Yeah, absolutely amazing. And then there is another one that is set to happen tomorrow, again, and this is from youth from the high school as well. They're currently in the high school, so they haven't graduated like the last group. These students are currently in a high school, and they have their parents helping out. I live in a diverse community, or at least they like to put themselves out there as being diverse. But my son goes to school with a plethora, a variety of races, and those parents are there to support their kids' friends, and organizing something like this. So like she said, you don't have to be there. You can educate your friends that don't really understand what the movement is about, and they think that, oh, okay, well, wait, why is it that only Black lives matter? Why wouldn't every life matter? And you can educate them to say that that's not what the movement is about. It's not stating that other lives don't matter. It's stating that right now, Blacks are in a pandemic themselves. They are at risk, and they are being forgotten in the system right now. And so that's the reason that we are now raising our voices to say it's not only your life that matter, we are worthy as well. Our lives matter as well. And so that's what you can explain to them, that this is what it means to you. And you can educate them on what it means. And even though you're not there because of the potential risk, you can still be supportive in your way. No one can tell you how to support.
Great.
Oh, you can make phone calls, and at the high school level, there's a group. Oh, I'm muted. Wait, hold on. Did I get muted?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. You can make phone calls from your house, And when you get to the high school level, there's this great social justice group called MICFA Challenge. And so when you get to high school, find out if they're there. And they do a lot of great, safe advocacy work.
And I think the last question we have before we close out is Natalie.
So my question was, what if my friends aren't taking Black Lives Matter seriously? What do I tell them to take it more seriously?
You can talk about, this is where the education comes in at. And I would also find like different similarities between, you know, African Americans and what your minority is, to be able to help them so that you all can continue to see eye to eye. But the real truth is that sometimes you may stand on that island alone. They may not ever, but you have to have the strength to say, you know, this is what I believe in. And it may be difficult for you to lead that and to stand alone in that. But you can let them know why it's important. We are dying in the street. And when they are done with us and we're done with our movement and they recognize that they cannot continue to kill us in the middle of the street, they're going to move on. Did you know that our Latinx brothers and sisters, especially our Latinx brothers, are 3 times more likely to die at the hands of police? Why is that not being televised? Why aren't those statistics being put on television when they are dying in the street as well? And so it's important that we all come together. You can be a movement by yourself.
Does anybody else have?
In love, encourage them in love.
Sorry.
And information.
I just want to read something to you that, you know, lately is just, I think I've read it 100 times. And it says, I am saying that a journey is called that because you cannot know what you will discover on the journey, what you will do with what you find, or what you find will do to you. And that was by James Baldwin. And I think his words from the 60s and 70s, that even now, I think it's very timely. You know, what he said is exactly what we're going through. And if you don't know who he is, please pick up anything from James Baldwin, and it will parallel exactly what we're going through right now. And I think if you're looking for any kind of strength, any kind of hope, look to each other, because being on this call, as long as we have been, and my stomach is growling, I'm still proud to say that, you know, I had the opportunity, one, to see Mary's message and answer it. It was a totally random moment, and we kind of put it together. And I want to thank you guys for allowing me to be here with you. And if there's anything that I can do in the future, like I said, I have 5 more years to do this business. So if you want to get together, you better get it in soon. Hope that the pandemic is over. I want some cupcakes. I want some snacks. I want to come to Chicago. And I just want to, you know, say thank you. And as a call to action, we want, you know, people to go and find us at actionnatfilmco.com. Again, that's actionnatfilmco.com, actionnatfilmco.com. And remember to love each other, respect each other, and stay hopeful.